This is going to be chapter 12, objective 3. Now, I did break objective 3 up into 3A and 3B just to shorten the videos a little bit. So 3A is going to discuss the neuron, and 3B is going to discuss the neuroglial cells. So this whole objective is about the cells of the nervous system. This video is going to discuss 3B, the neuroglial cells of the nervous system. So we're going to jump on over to the neuroglial cells. So again, there's two main types, just to review. You've got the neuron, and then you've got all of those little purple dots in this image here, which represent the neuroglial cells. So we're going to jump ahead to those neuroglial cells. And here you can see in the image, you've got astrocytes, which are a type of neuroglial cell. They're the ones that are staining green in this image. So astro makes you think kind of stars. And if you kind of look at the picture, it does look like these are star-shaped cells. So we'll talk more about those here in just a second. So neuroglial cells, also known as glial cells. Glial means glue. And when you put that with neuroglial, this is basically nerve glue. And these are the helper cells of the nervous system. So they help the neuron, which again was discussed in video 3A, do its job. They support the neuron. There's actually more glial cells than there are neurons. They're involved in, again, helping support the neuron by providing nutrition, maintenance, and protection. We'll talk specifically about how they do that in a second. So neuroglial cells are classified based on what division of the nervous system they belong to. So we're going to classify them based on whether they're part of the central nervous system or whether they're part of the peripheral nervous system, the two main divisions of the nervous system. So these are the 4 neuroglial cells that are part of the central nervous system. You've got oligodendrocytes, astrocytes, microglia cells, and ependymal cells. We're first going to take a look at each one of these. Then we're going to look at the 2 neuroglial cells of the peripheral nervous system for a total of 6. So we're first going to talk about the first 4 of the central nervous system. So these astrocytes here, you can see it's stained in purple up here. It is astro, meaning star, so it's a star-shaped cell. You can see that it's kind of attaching here to the blood vessel, which is an important function of the astrocyte. It is star-shaped. It's got a lot of functions. We're really just going to focus on one. It does make up the majority of the central nervous system. It's involved in scar tissue, so it does create some scar tissue if necessary. But the main function that we're going to focus on is it makes up what's called the blood-brain barrier. So it literally is the barrier between the brain, which is the neuron, and the blood, which is going to be found in the capillary. So you're going to find it in between the two. So what it does, while the capillary's job is to allow the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, it's porous. It also allows the diffusion of materials, sugars, things like that, in and out of the bloodstream. Not everything that's in the capillary that's able to leave do we want accessing the neuron. So again, that astrocyte's job is to be that barrier between that capillary. It's a little safety procedure there. So whatever the capillary leaks out may or may not get to the neuron. Now, this can be a good thing, but it can also be a challenging thing when you're trying to provide antibiotics to the central nervous system. This is part of the reason why there's a problem. Ependymal cells. Ependymal cells, we mentioned this a little bit when we talk about cerebral spinal fluid. So the ependymal cell's job is to make cerebral spinal fluid, and you're going to find it lining cavities within the brain and spinal cord. So you have these ependymal cells here, and their job is to create this cerebral spinal fluid that's going to be housed in these cavities, also known as ventricles, in the brain. It lines ventricles or cavities, and it creates that cerebral spinal fluid. Microglial cells. This is an interesting looking cell. This is a small and oval shaped cell with these thorny processes projecting off of it. It's basically the immune cell of the brain. So it deals with pathogens. It also gets rid of tissue that is dying or dead, any kind of pathogen, microorganism that's not supposed to be there, any foreign substance that's not supposed to be there. So again, these are small cells with slender branches that come off of the cell body. And you would think, if somebody's got, let's say, um, meningitis. As you all know, that when you came to college, one of the things you had to get was a meningitis shot. So there are two forms of meningitis, actually more than that, but the two that I'm going to talk about is bacterial meningitis and viral meningitis. Bacterial meningitis, it's caused from a bacteria. It invades the central nervous system, and you would think that just by providing antibiotics, you would get rid of the bacteria, right? Because that's how you get rid of bacterial infections. You just give somebody antibiotics and they're fine. But that astrocyte is preventing the antibiotics to get to the central nervous system. So that's why people die from bacterial meningitis. Viral meningitis, on the other hand, while it's pretty bad, your immune system can usually take care of this if your immune system is doing its job. And the microglial cells are helpful in that response. So you may be asking, well, where are they during bacterial meningitis? Well, the bacteria is replicating faster than the microglial cells can handle it. So that's and then it overtakes. So that's why people can die within 24 hours of contracting bacterial meningitis. And that's why you got your meningitis vaccine before you came to school. Very easily passed from person to person. So there is, believe it or not, a difference in males and females and their microglial cells that are found in the central nervous system. And you can see the difference just in shape and in function. So it's pretty amazing. This was actually a study that I read not too long ago. I had no idea. I was just looking up microglial cells and found that there is a difference between microglial cells found in males versus microglial cells found in females. Just pretty amazing. Oligodendrocytes, another neuroglial cell found in the central nervous system. Now, this one, you've got your oligodendrocyte right here. This one is a large bulbous cell. So it's a large round cell with all these cytoplasmic extensions coming off. And look at what those cytoplasmic extensions are doing. They are surrounding the axon. They're providing that myelin sheath around that axon to allow that electrical signal to get from point A to point B. But they're only doing it on the neurons in the brain and spinal cord. So they're not surrounding axons in the peripheral nervous system. They're surrounding axons in the central nervous system. And you can see here that one cell is myelinating multiple axons. Okay, and then I just kind of had a little snippet here in the PowerPoint on multiple sclerosis, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks and scars the myelin sheath of the central nervous system. So you can read up a little bit more on that if you want. So again, this is just those cells of the central nervous system that are the neuroglial cells that help the neuron. Now let's take a look at the cells of the peripheral nervous system. These are going to be cells that communicate with the neurons in the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. You've got two cells. You've got satellite cells and Schwann cells are the two cells. So let's first take a look at Schwann cells. Again, this is neuroglial cells, helper cells of the neurons in the peripheral nervous system. Oh my goodness, look, they also wrap around axons, forming a myelin sheath. Now, just like the oligodendrocytes did that, they do this a little bit differently, where you have this axon here of this neuron in the peripheral nervous system. You can see each one of these little marshmallow-like things is its own Schwann cell. So this axon has multiple cells, each creating a little wrapping of myelin, where the oligodendrocyte was one cell that wrapped multiple axons. This is one cell that wraps part of an axon of part of a neuron. Satellite cells, they're these purple in this picture here. They're these purple cells that are kind of sitting on top of the cell body there of the neuron. And their job is to support, nourish, and protect from heavy metal poisons. Hg is mercury, Pb is lead. So the job of that satellite cell is to protect the neuron from those heavy metals. So again, those are your cells of the neuroglial cells of the peripheral nervous system and the 4 neuroglial cells of the central nervous system. So what you're going to need to know for your test is the division that each neuroglial cell belongs to and their function. So I've just made a little table here that shows what system each belongs to. And then if you needed to go back and take a look at any of them individually, I've got hyperlinks here to all of the individual neuroglial cells. So I'll give you a second to answer number 7 on your in-class questions. Okay, number 1 is C. And why was it not, why did, for oligodendrocytes, I know you probably keyed in on that word myelin there. Those aren't flattened cells. That's describing a Schwann cell, okay, which is part of your peripheral nervous system. The large bulbous cell with those cytoplasmic extensions allowing myelin to surround the axon, that is the oligodendrocyte. And then number 2, the phagocytic cell, that's going to be the microglial cell. Now, I realize we've gone over several objectives if you've been going in order, objective 1, 2, 3A, and 3B. So this video right here, I've got it hyperlinked. This video right here in 10 minutes pretty much goes over everything we've discussed thus far. So if you just needed one video to cover everything we've talked about, this one's an awesome one. Crash Course is a very good resource if you have not already discovered it. And that ends objective 3B.